Hello. Today's presentation is regarding the modeling of multiple volatility feedback moderation, which is applied to the hedge fund indices. I'm Professor Keun from School of Business at Joung University. Farmer mentioned in his 1972 journal that a fund manager has two types of skills. The first one is ability to select the right securities, which is called stock selection ability. And second ability is to forecast the potential market movement to adjust the risk on positions, which is called the market timing. And Agar and Naik studied some equity biased hedge fund investment styles exhibiting a relationship with option-based risk factors that consist of returns obtained by buying and selling of 1 month later liquid put and call options on S&P 500 index. And Friesen et al. Studied collective mutual fund managers, including in the style indices, may adjust their portfolio factor exposures conditioned to past factor returns rather than future returns, which is detrimental to their outperformance. Joung et al. Studied a negative relationship between 1 month prior idiosyncratic vol and subsequent stock returns. And in our study, it is our focus to incorporate the insight into a practical implication that can be adopted by hedge fund investors to recap these managers' collective behavior and the past trend and the information content of implied equity market volatilities. And lately, Chu and Kim studied the market timing ability of Korean equity long-short hedge funds by introducing the concept of a stock tilting volatility to measure the quantity in the amount of variation or dispersion of a set individual fund style exposures. And there are some discussions about process which is called a mediation analysis, and another one is a moderation analysis. And I think I can skip it over because everybody pretty much is familiar with this kind of analysis tools. Okay, this is our basic model. This is our proposed model. This is independent variable, which is the momentum return of 1 month prior short-term interest rate futures market, and which is a hedge fund return as a dependent variable, and which is conditioned by the quadratic return of volatility indices. Okay, if I just write it up, the model in this way and from the equation 2. Therefore, the effect of the 1 month prior momentum return of short-term interest rate futures market is actually a function of the quadratic return of volatility, which ultimately providing an impact to hedge fund returns. Okay, the equation 1 shows pretty much the primary model, which I call the baseline model. The model fitting shows not so quite impressive the fitting result, and the explanatory power is pretty limited. And if I put the hedge fund time series of around 10 years, more than 10 years into our volatility feedback moderation model, and in terms of improvement in the model fit, the Barclays emerging market, long-short equity, and the fund of hedge fund, global macro, and multi-strategy indices are statistically significant after two-way interaction term is included. Okay, the last one is the S&P 500 index, which is market-weighted passive indices, and which shows any real evidence of significant moderation effect, which is of course very reasonable. So a quadratic return of volatility it shows in a horizontal axis, and the vertical axis shows the conditional moderation effect. Okay, and the outstanding result is emerging market hedge fund indices. Okay, they show pretty much a distinctive impact here. So I decided to study this one a little bit more deeply by introducing three different equations here. Okay, equation 5 shows that the beta 1t, which is a hedge fund manager's the contemporaneous determination on her market exposure, is actually the function of previous month's market exposure adjusted by the 1 month prior previous month's conditional moderation signal, which has been implied by this one. Okay, so the market exposure is actually adjusted through this one, the mediation impact, to the pure market exposure. Okay, so with this adjustment in adaptive market exposure, equation 6 managers adjust her market exposures based upon previous process and all other passive effect exposures. Compared to equation 6 manager, equation 7 managers do not show any significant adjustment in his market exposures. So equation 5 and 6 and 7 shows how the fund managers adjust their market exposures based upon certain internal inputs they can digest through the market signal. Okay, so equation 5 postulates a successful market timing manager of convergence trade in her mind might increase market exposures after watching a negative 1 month prior conditional moderation effect with a positive expected return expectation. Okay, and they might decrease their market exposure if the opposite is true. So this would create a convex relationship between the hedge fund return and the market exposure. Okay, so for example, equation 6 manager, they do not show any consistent exposures in high minus low, conservative minus aggressive, and robust minus weakness factors. While equation 7 managers, they show highly significant exposures in here. Okay. In the meantime, so there is no consistency here. That means they are actively adjusting their factor exposures in high minus low, conservative minus active, the aggressive and robust minus weakness. In the meantime, the small minus big case, both of them are pretty significant. Okay, so in case of small stocks, these emerging market managers do not show a lot of the variation or a lot of active bets in here. Okay, and in the meantime, the R scale is quite high compared to both of them. So in terms of application, we apply the 3 pools of liquid alternative hedge fund stocks. These are basic, the descriptive statistics. And first portfolio is a collection of short vol managers, and the second portfolio is the composition of both short vol and around 20% of allocation to long volatility managers. And last one is commercially viable long volatility, heavily biased long volatility, the tail protection managers. Okay, the study period is starting from January 2008 to latest October 2018. Okay, from the baseline model, the fitting through 3 different portfolios shows pretty low the calibration result, except for the last portfolio 0.27, which is not high. However, compared to those quite impressive. But remember that this is just the baseline, okay? And I can just call these three models as a simple form of a model misspecification, because they have unconventionally large intercept and a very low poor explanatory power. If I apply to the same hedge fund portfolios to our multiple moderated mediation models, the performance is quite impressive, because the R-scale improvement is pretty a lot. Okay, this one is almost 2.5 times more than that, more than baseline, and all three, the intercept in here shows the dual moderated mediation impact is significant. Okay, this one is negative, however this one is pretty positive and statistically highly significant. Okay, if I put the horizontal axis the quadratic volatility return, and then vertical axis as a dual moderated mediation impact, and this last portfolio, the MP, which stands for the protection, okay, shows quite positive and significant. So the stronger the positive conditional moderation effect, the larger the portion of the restoration from the initial alpha estimated from here. So if any in-house ex-ante factor generating process shows a certain degree of a favorable, the short-term momentum return of the interest rate futures market, when the volatility returns jumps, okay, square the return is jumps in the prior months, then these two portfolios, portfolio managers tend to the most active in altering their fund exposures to or from the trend following factor. Okay, that's basically what it shows. Okay, again, HKM managers here, their performance is pretty intimissimo mediocre. Okay, they show pretty consistent exposures in this CMA, RMW, and WML, a winner minus loser, which is momentum factor. Okay, cross-sectional momentum factor. In the meantime, the MP and OWM, the second and third portfolio, shows inconsistency here, and the MP portfolio, they shows inconsistency here. Okay, that means the managers actually actively tilting their portfolio exposures. Okay, so our finding is our major empirical finding is that the multi-factor conditional alpha valuation depends on size and the magnitude of the conditional moderation effect measure in general, as comparing the active performances activated with or without elaboration of the linearly moderating volatility of implied equity market volatility effect. One sentence, 5 lines, I can believe that. Furthermore, the time-varying nature of conditional moderation effect leads the managers to adaptively alter the subsequent months' risk-on positions proactively, and therefore not enough overall consistency in the exposures is revealed, even in the list of well-documented systematic risk factors. Another one sentence, another just a simple one sentence. Okay, I can believe I wrote that. Okay, this is my short bio and my email as well. If you have any question, please feel free to write to me, and then I will try to answer as much as I can. Okay, thank you very much, and have a good day.